So I am here at Make Smith Leather, a single store location in Santa Barbara, and I'm here with Steven,
Hello.
Not to be confused with Steve. And you are a third generation leather maker.
Yes.
So we are going to talk about sort of the process of what that means, being third generation, how the family works, how he still makes his bags by hand, how he selects the hides, where they come from, all of that good stuff. And it's American source. But I'll let you sort of tell the story of your family's history of leather.
Yeah, so I grew up in my dad's shop, and my mom and dad run like a repair and restoration shop that they inherited from my grandfather and his brother. My grandfather and his brother originally were trained in traditional saddlery.
Okay.
And so like in 1955, if you would have won the rodeo in Santa Barbara, you would have won a prize, and it would have been Fred Soria's saddle, beautifully tooled. So I grew up around that. I grew up around all the equestrian gear, saddlebags, chaps, that type of thing, just being around these guys. And I have an art background, sculpture and fine arts. And this is something I've always been interested in, is just keeping the family craft around, and I've been doing it my entire life. So that's really the combo thing, is I'm a sculptor, but I'm also a craftsman.
But this is also an art unto itself, right? It's just a different medium, but it's art as well.
There's a lot of art applications towards it. I mean, you're building objects, right? And that's like the vocabulary I built, in school. But also there's the applied art to it. There's the tooling, there's the original artwork that's created, there's color, there's design, there's all those things. It's artisan, I guess.
Yeah. And how often do you come up with new designs versus sort of doing the things that you've been doing?
Well, because the world has really changed, and we see this a lot with electronics, the pocket size start changing, the body size of the bags need to change. I would say we design a lot. I mean, the past 2 years have been very busy developing our product line, and I think when I looked at our website last week, we had like 85 active products.
Oh my gosh.
So I know, it just creeps up on you, and I feel like that's crazy, but it feels like 20, but it's 85.
It's 85, and you have stuff here that I'm going to show you later that's not even on the website, right?
Exactly, yeah. In the store, it's like, of course, this is my workshop. It's super tiny, and you're going to find one of a kinds. Whether it's a certain, piece of leather I was inspired by, and I make a bag that, is on the website, but in a special color here in the store. And some pieces are literally art pieces. They're art bags. They're going to be in a fashion show, or I'm just making them because I'm really bored of working on everything else, and I want to make a brand new bag.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of what's going on here in my shop. It's, made one at a time.
And what do you think in terms of, just so people understand that when you buy something handmade from an artisan, how long does it take to make, say, a small tote? From like start to finish, and to cut it yourself? You don't do anything. Do you do all the hand stitching?
We don't do a lot of hand stitching. We actually use a saddlery sewing machine.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I grew up on sewing machines, and I do like hand stitching, but I actually prefer like hand lacing. It's more of using like a leather lace to kind of loop stitch and do which is a double cordovan, which is like a stitch around the seam. That is kind of more traditional to the saddlery industry, is what I learned, but I simultaneously learned how to stitch on the sewing machine, and I love doing that. But to answer the question of how long does it take, it's a lot faster with the sewing machine. And that's a big deal, because I want to be able to offer a very fair and competitive price to people, and hand stitching it is just, unfortunately, it takes it out of that price point that's not for everyone, and I don't like that. I like making common goods, common goods that people can find function with every day. From start to finish, I do a lot of batches. I'll make 6 pieces at a time. Whatever we can finish in one day is kind of like what we try to do, so we don't feel like robots.
Yep.
You don't want to make 100 or something. So I would say if I were to do one, I could probably finish a tote bag within 1 hour.
Wow.
If I really was cranking, and I needed to do it. But I'm really fast now. I mean, I don't even need the pattern. I can just make them.
You just eyeball it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's incredible.
There's a lot of pieces that way. So yeah, about an hour. But I teach classes, and my students, it takes them 5 hours. But again,
I want to do one of those classes.
We're helping each other, and we're learning, and we're talking about leather, and maybe we're drinking a little wine, so we're a little slower. But when you get to this point where you've had everything templated, and everything's at, like, my shop is so efficient, I just have everything within arm's reach. That makes things fast.
Good. So you have classes. So for anyone who's out here, check the website, right? Because you do
Yes.
a tote making class, and you do what else?
Wallet making. We've done dog collars. But I would say the tote bag making class is the most popular. And then I also open it up to other teachers. And we have a shoe designer named Stacy Fulweiler. She teaches sandal making. And then we have a fellow named Patrick Melroy who teaches axe building. And then I teach how to make a sheath for it in the same class. So we're starting to also stretch out and offer things like tooling with Brad Cooper, who's a saddle maker. And so we're kind of have a small community of teachers. And so I'm not particularly good at tooling. I know how to do it. I know how to do it, but that's not my focus. It's a team. And Brad's really amazing at tooling. And so I reached out to him, and now he's teaching that class.
I love that. So it's really, I mean, you're a community of makers, right? It's not just a shop. You're supporting them and their fellow teachers. So it's a really interesting concept. Yeah. And speaking of community, I want to sort of switch gears to sourcing, which is sort of a hot topic. I feel like it's been around for a few months, but you hear it batted around a lot. Sort of, where does your leather come from? Is it 100% American sourced? Is it American made? We've touched on American made, right? He does it here in Santa Barbara, so it's absolutely a local product. But talk to us about sourcing and where you get your leather from.
So we source from companies that that have been around for just as long as my family's craft has been along. And when I started buying leather, I was just like, Dad, where do I get this leather? Because I could go to Los Angeles and go to the fabric industry or fabric district, and it's hard to know where the sourcing is. And a lot of times people don't have the patience to sit and tell you. But I don't have those sort of issues. I was luckily born into this, and my dad's like, go to Napa Hide House, you won't regret it, just go there, it'll take care of you, and then you can order it. And Napa Hide House distributes some of the top labels like Wickett and Craig and Herman Oak. These are all domestic U.S. produced leathers, and that's what we focus on. And specifically, they're from the saddlery industry. They produce leathers for saddles, and that's why we have this sort of equestrian look. And that's the technique I know.
And how is saddle leather different than like leather that was produced and intended to be used for like a handbag?
Okay, so first of all, it's usually a lot thicker, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of like, you can see our style, like we use very thick leather, it's very durable. A lot of it is produced to be used in an outdoor format, like it'll be water resistant, but it's just got an old world kind of value to it. They still oak tan them, they still oil them by hand and wax them. And so there's a more handmade appeal to it. They smell more natural. They're typically not sprayed with some type of paint on the top surface that scratches off. They're usually dyed all the way through and oiled. They just have a more rich sort of look to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on that note, I asked him to pick out a hide just to talk about sort of the thickness of the leather and to educate us on like what does that mean when you pick up a handbag? How do you know that it's good quality? What are the weights and the ounces and that sort of thing that speak to the quality of the bag that you're buying? So tell us about this and
yeah, this is a type of a bridal leather, and this is latigo, which means it's vegetable tanned, but then it's also it's waxed and it's oiled, and so it's ready to sort of be used outdoors. And this is the type of thing that would be used for saddlery, specifically like reins and things that are handled and need to be sort of soft but still very durable and can obviously be weather resistant. This specifically I use for our strap handles because it's exactly the same application. It's thick, so this is probably like 8 to 10 ounce. It's not going to break down right away, and it's got a nice finished back as well as a good looking top. Latigos specifically are not top quality like grade A. They kind of are like grade B or C, and they have a lot of character in them, and which I like. It's just more texture, and they're not corrected. They're not like sanded down or something like that.
It's still
and so
full
you actually
grain.
get to see that. It's still full grain, and I like all that texture. Our designs are very simple, and so if you pick really beautiful leathers that have texture, then you've got a lot going on all of a sudden. And so I love that. And so you'll see that with Latigo leathers. So yeah, this one came from Napa Hide House.
And what would make something like grade A? Would it be that there's very few imperfections or very few scars, or what?
Yeah, and exactly, all those things. And so one interesting way to think about it is that obviously a lot of these cows come from ranches in this context. These are not feedlot cows that just sit around. Typically, they have brands on them. They have mosquito bites. They have scratches from barbed wire because they were outside.
Okay.
And so you're going to see all that. You'll see freckles, that kind of thing. And a lot of times those have to be corrected off We don't get those. We get all the ones with all the stuff on them. I really like it.
I do
You kind of have
too.
to work around it a little bit, but on the bridal leather, it doesn't show up as much as, say, an oiled chap, and you're trying to get like the body of a bag to look just right. So we have to kind of work with some of those blemishes. It's not that big a deal. And if it's really bad off, we'll make a knife case out of it.
Right.
And in that context, it's totally fine.
Right.
So.
And then
yeah.
earlier you had mentioned something about sort of how the whole hide comes and the difference between sort of the main body of the leather versus the ends that you refer to as the burrito. Can you talk about that a little?
We'll get down to the end of the leather. This is the outside, like a belly and a little this is probably the belly piece. I haven't opened it completely, but see how soft it is. So I call it the burrito butt because you get down to the end of the burrito and there's not much left. It's just like the corners. And these are really wonderful pieces. You can actually pick them up really cheap in leather shops because they're probably only good for wallets and keychains and things that don't really need to get stretched, but they're soft and they fold over, and so they'll make nice little accessories. The premium cuts that go all the way out to the back are actually really good for belting because they don't stretch as much.
Okay.
And they're super clean, right? And so when you make a belt and it's size 34, it's going to stay at 34 for its life, not again end up being a 38 after you crank on it a bunch of times. So we have a lot of these. In fact, if you can see it inside of our shop, we have a shelf that has a bunch of these different colors just waiting to turn into something like a wallet or a keychain. So,
okay.
Or a customer comes in and says, "Hey, I want leather," and I'll be able to sell this to them really cheap or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then when I first came into the store, he was busy with a customer, and you were making sort of custom alterations for that woman and her product. So can you talk a little bit about? I think that's a luxury of working with a single artisan and a small store, right? You can custom your bag. What do you do for customers in the way of customization?
Well, we have a few formulas, and basically because we do have enough bags now where we have maybe 12 to 14 templates, we can pretty much get really close. If we have a tote bag, we have a purse, we have a backpack, you can kind of, and we have different sizes of those, you can kind of get into the ballpark of what someone needs. However, the straps are always changing, right? Especially when you think about how different all of our bodies are. Sometimes we have special needs, or sometimes people are just taller or they're shorter. We have to be able to put a thicker strap, a shorter strap, a longer strap, a different kind of strap. And for example, today the customer had very little dexterity with her hands, and so I was able to put a softer clip, like a carabiner.
Oh, okay.
Just had like an open-close gate, and that worked better for her as opposed to a snap clip which she couldn't use. So we're able to make those alterations in the shop based on certain parameters, and so then, we're able to come up with a solution for her.
Yeah, so I think that's just one of the benefits of working with a small artisan, right? You're able to customize the tote. If you see something on his site that you like, but it's not exactly what you're looking for, you can make that.
You can come in and we can talk about it, and it almost becomes like this plug and play thing where we've done so many that we go, oh, if you like that pocket, we'll put that on the backpack. You like that strap from the backpack, we'll put it on the tote, and just see how it goes. Of course, there's charges for all those things, but it is possible. And sometimes, like with that customer, she really just needs it. We turned a backpack into a front pack.
Wow.
You can imagine the apparatus that has to happen for that, and the clips, and then rethinking everything, is turning everything upside down. But that's what's possible. Is if there's time. Certain times of the year are better than others for that. For example, Christmas is kind of crazy around here, but right now in summer it's quiet. So.
And what do you think is when you think about doing this for a living and creating with your hands and having the opportunity to use your background in art, like what's your absolute favorite part of the job?
I think nailing one of these solutions, like today's customer, it's very challenging design-wise and just functionality, and I think it's pretty cool to be able to find a solution and see that you would really help someone. I think I really get a lot out of that, helping people. And then the second part is just seeing these things come alive. Like, I'm out having a beer on a patio at a burger joint, and I watch 2 tote bags walk by on the street. That to me is really what I know that I've connected with someone, and that this leather is not a waste. The animal didn't die for no reason. Like, the materials are not wasted. They're actually getting some use out of them, and that's the difference between craft and functional goods, and I think I'm attracted to that more than, say, art.
Right.
That hangs on a wall and maybe falls into someone's collection, is not seen for a while. I would rather people get use out of the things that I make. It's very fulfilling to me.
Yeah, it's wearable art in essence, right? Wearable art that's like customized to your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I recently came across a box of leather scraps and I am not good. But I know.
Not good yet.
I'm not good yet, but I do have designs that I want to try something small.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm gonna maybe start with like something uber small. Don't laugh, but like a tassel.
Yeah, tassel, a keychain is good.
Something just like I just want to practice cutting.
Yes.
Like, what do you recommend for someone that's like, hey, take your class if you're in the Santa Barbara area, because you can show them how to make a tote.
Yeah.
But if you're not close to Southern California, like how can somebody get started? Like what's the best thing for them to do if they want to just sort of like cut their teeth learning your craft? And like how long would it take for someone to go from like me, where I know 0 to making something simple, like a very easy tote, no pockets?
Yeah. Where to get started with that? First of all, go to makesmith.com. No, but I'm not kidding.
Plug.
I'm not kidding though. I mean, that's what we're doing here is we're talking about, how to get started, and I do teach classes, but I also have a lot of resources on our website. If you go to the blog posts, I talk about our classes. If you go to the classes page, I actually show you exactly what skills you're going to learn, and that's a place to start. So I'm going to teach you sewing and cutting and hand punching, and if you email me, I'll also give you a list of the places you need to go to buy these tools. All my students take home a packet of where to go shopping in Central and Southern California. All the online resources that they're going to need for when they go home and they want to make Christmas presents. I literally give all my resources to my students. This is an open source kind of thing. If people come in and they show love and they respect what we're doing and they take a class and they put their time, then I have so much time for them as well.
I
right? That's the community
that.
thing,
Yeah.
what I mean? And so that's the place to get started. Just make that connection. Become a student. Become somebody who learns, and reach out and just ask. Just ask us.
Yeah.
And look through our site. And I have so many like videos on our Instagram page of like how we make our stuff. And just watch. As a kid, I watched my dad, and I wasn't even that interested until I was like 12. But I've been watching him all those years, and then I just knew what to do because I was watching.
And I love that you're basically a community, right? You're not stealing behind closed doors like what it is that you do, but you're sharing your knowledge, you're sharing your craft, and you're opening up even other people to the community around you.
I went in the computer. I ran one report on ticket sales for classes. We're now over 650 students in 5 years. 650 people I've taught to work with their hands and learn this craft and really go out there as consumers and know what real leather looks like and how things should be made. Right? And so, yeah, there's been a lot.
Okay, there's been a lot.
There's been a lot of students.
And on that note, I want to see how things should be made. So we're going to pop out into the studio and take a look at some of Steven's, not to be confused with Steve, right? His dad.
My dad.
We're going to take a look at some of Steven's designs and see how things should be made. So stay tuned.